So, Councilman Epps, thank you very much for joining me this evening. We're before the second meeting of this week, and we are coming off of an interesting meeting yesterday where we talked about CIP.
Yes.
Yesterday, your coworker, your colleague, Councilman Warren from Ward 8, brought up a number of issues dealing with the library and the museum. And you made a comment from the dais, and I'm going to not quote you directly, but
Sure.
you said something to the effect that the museum is important to our community and that your children enjoy going to that. And I'm going to assume also the library. Can you tell me about your thoughts about what Councilman Warren said about perhaps maybe using the FISTA Center as a permanent home for those two locations?
Sure. I would say that I'm going to divide this into two pieces. And I say that because my view is slightly different depending upon which space you're talking about. In terms of the library, it makes sense to me that we could explore options to align the library within the FISTA. It would be right next to the STEM lab, and perhaps you could create some synergy. And the reason why I say it may be important is because you never know what can trigger a child's interest. And when you talk about kids working within that STEM lab, they may become curious about more information that is involved with whatever they're doing. And that might be an opportunity to get them over into the library to learn more things. So I think there could be some synergy there. I would certainly love to hear more about that as an option, because I'm a data-driven person. And so I need to understand the difference in the costs and what it means. And I just need more information, but conceptually, it makes sense to me. Now, the museum, I think if we can create multiple places within the city that people can visit, then what you create is a weekend getaway, right? So imagine a family that comes down, they take in a show at the McMahon Auditorium. Maybe the next day they go next door and they go into the museum, which if you haven't been in our museum, because I believe it's very underutilized, it's an interactive place that kids love. I mean, my kids go in there and they absolutely don't want to leave. They're upset when we have to leave. And that is something I was not aware of when I was a soldier stationed at Fort Sill. I could have been taking my kids there. So how many other families don't know or realize what all there is true to do here? So I like the museum. I like where it's at because it gives us multiple options for someone to come down and view Lawton as a potential weekend getaway.
That's really interesting you mentioned that with the weekend getaway angle. Last night at the CIP discussion, it was talking about the sports complex coming to Lawton and putting in a number of $1 million into doing that. And it was mentioned by one of the architects, I believe, that the fields that we're going to put in right away won't be good enough for regional play. And we're looking at a big picture here, trying to make Southwest Oklahoma a draw to throughout the state, really the region, North Texas, New Mexico, we look at Oklahoma, Kansas, and a lot of traveling teams they spend a lot of money not only at hotels, but look for those other things to do. Do you think that we need to maybe put more effort into funding that sports complex? And have you thought about how we're going to manage that and what kind of management we're going to use to make sure that we have the consistent tournaments and the different draws to the community?
Sure, and you may have heard me ask the museum this very question that I'm thinking about. And what I would like to know is what resources are available to us aside from the CIP? Are there grants? Are there federal programs? And I don't know the answer to that, but I would certainly like to be reassured that we've taken a deep dive into that. Because we want to leverage as much as we can. We have a lot of great things going on. All of them need funding, right? And funding is limited. You can only do so much. So there's a lot that we have to take into consideration. And, I really get excited when I hear about other efforts to help fund some of these, aside from just our local tax dollars. So I'm a proponent of the sports complex. I think that it can increase revenue, tax revenue for the city, which I think is good overall. All of us want to see all of these great things, and we're seeing them come through fruition, but we just have to balance it and ensure that we can fund it all properly. And I think that's where you see a lot of discussion and a lot of questions about how we're getting the resources to bring all of these things through fruition. We all want it. Great things happening across the city. I want to see the momentum keep going, and I'm excited about that.
Okay. Funding is a really important issue. Last city council meeting, last week when we were downstairs in the banquet room, the last agenda item had the fire chief, Chief Burk, I believe is his name. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Yes. So he talked about the city having already purchased 2 ambulances, but we are short the occupancy, I guess, license of some sort. And Councilman Hooten, who you sit next to at the meetings, asked the question, how much is it? And Mr. Burke, the Chief Burke, said it was $600. And he equated that to an insurance policy.
Yeah.
Why would the city council not look at $600 being very inexpensive insurance, especially since we're considering the type of activities here in the community that bring a lot of people in? And he mentioned about mass casualty events, which you know, happen quite a bit. We also live next to Fort Sill, where they've had events as well.
Sure. So I think there's a lot more to it than what meets the eye, and we didn't get a chance to dig into the very details of it. Yes, 600 sounds you know, very minute, but you know, what I would like to know is what are the second and third order costs that we have not considered. And so we didn't get into that discussion, and nor do I know we were ready for that discussion. And I think that was the point behind establishing this committee of professionals who are in this field, who will do an assessment of like, okay, are we meeting the emergency response capabilities? If not, then how do we fix those gaps? How do we organize that information and prioritize it so that we correct it if it needs to be corrected in a responsible and a fiscal responsible way. And so I'm really excited to hear from professionals that work in that field. Not a knock against Chief. Chief is one of those professionals, and perhaps him or a delegate would be at the table. But we need input from everyone. We need input from our medical community, we need input from the police department, and we certainly need Chief's input, and it sounds like he's looked into it substantially already. So once we look at it holistically and then figure out, okay, what is going to be our approach, I think you'll see some positive action from the council.
Okay. Moving back to budgets a little bit, last night when we talked about the CIP, were you a little surprised at the sheer number of amount of money that we were talking about through the different projects?
I wasn't surprised. We're doing a lot to make the city a great place for kids, and we're doing a lot to make it, you know, a destination of choice, somewhere where everyone would want to live. We get a lot of people retiring from the military. I'm certainly one of them, and we want to ensure that they have. It's an exciting place. There are great parks. The infrastructure is here to support them. There are things for them here to do. And certainly you can see a lot of momentum going towards that effort. Lawton is trying to grow, and I think we're doing a good job at it. So with that comes costs. And so that's why projects like the sports complex and us understanding other ways to fund that and getting it up and established to help generate the revenue so that we can continue all of the great things that you see going on.
Okay. Now, one last question, or last two questions I have for you.
Sure.
We're coming towards the end of the year for us. We just started the fiscal year back in October. Starting with the new year in January, what do you see the city's priorities being on the dais that we need to be looking forward to?
I think you're going to see a lot of clean and safe neighborhoods. I think you'll see us addressing that substantially. I've certainly, I haven't been in the seat very long, but I've gotten a lot of calls about dilapidated structures, tall grass, and et cetera. And I've driven through my ward, and there's varying spots. You know, some spots look better than others in terms of the upkeep. And we're doing a decent job at addressing those, but I think there's some constituents that would like to see us ramp that up. So I think that's something you can probably see, clean, safe neighborhoods for our kids.
Okay. A last question. On tonight's meeting, we're looking at a number of options or a number of things on the agenda. Is there anything that sticks out in your mind as being important that my viewers and your constituents need to pay attention to?
So I think anytime that you see anything dealing with budgets or funding or anything that has to do with your tax dollars, I would imagine you'd certainly want to pay close attention to what's happening. Not that something, mischievous or felonious is happening, but just so that you have awareness and so that you can send recommendations or concerns or any comments that you may have. Positive feedback's welcome too, to your particular council representative.
Okay. Councilman Epps, thank you very much for joining us. You've always been a friend to the town crier, and we appreciate you.
No problem.